For the last 10 years, the Legal Aid Services Providers Network, LASPNet, has been advocating for the national legal aid law in Uganda. The law intends to, among others, ensure that the delivery of legal aid is vested in the hands of government. After a lot of effort, the proposed law and policy reached Cabinet in 2012. However, until now, it remains stalled at that level. LASPNet in 2017 developed an advocacy strategy that was intended to inform effective strategies for fast-tracking the legal aid law in Parliament. Among those strategies was to engage parliamentarians through their committees and forums. Fast forward in 2018, LASPNet, with support from UNDP, forged a partnership with Greater North Parliamentary Forum to fast-track the enactment of the legal aid law. This partnership has so far yielded results through co-opting the chairperson of Greater North Parliamentary Forum, Honorable Leandro Komakech, to spearhead efforts of introducing a private member's bill, seconded by Honorable Veronica Bichetero.
So as LASPNet went back to the drawing board and decided to come up with an advocacy campaign to ensure that we fast track and push to have this law in place. And that's how we came to partner with Greater North Parliamentary Forum, led by Honorable Leandro Komakech, the chairperson of Greater North Parliamentary Forum. And we convened several breakfast meetings with members of parliament, and they agreed that they should move a private member's bill.
Last year, we sat and decided to present before Parliament the National Legal Aid Bill 2018, in which we stated very clearly that this law will open up gates for all Ugandans that have not been in position to access justice as is required under the law. At present, we only have access to justice to those undergoing capital offenses only. Those are the only categories that the government of Uganda can provide legal aid services for. And beyond that, we also have state briefs and pro bono services that are so narrow to very few Ugandans. We believe government of Uganda is mandated and should facilitate all Ugandans regardless of their origin, tribe, and all that.
National Legal Aid Bill seeks to give the obligation to the government to offer legal aid support to indigent and vulnerable persons in the country who have for long been having challenges of access to justice. Leandro Komakech, the chairman, Greater North Parliamentary Forum, mover of the bill. Current legal aid policy vacuum. There is no national legal aid body to manage legal aid service provision. The scope of the state-provided legal aid services is limited and excludes the majority of persons in Uganda and the type of legal aid services of which they are most in need. Access to justice for the rural and urban poor, as well as vulnerable persons, especially women, is restricted due to poverty. Access to lawyers is limited, especially in rural areas, and the basic lack of knowledge on procedures of access to justice. Government legal aid service is currently limited to capital offences.
So the law will put in place a service provider, but this service provider is a state-funded service provider. In other words, the government of Uganda will take over the primary obligation of ensuring equal access to justice and equality before the law of all manner of people by providing for a sustainable legal aid service, which it currently doesn't exist.
You know how access to lawyers has been a big problem. You know, paying of the services of lawyers is always in hundreds. It ranges from hundreds of thousands of shillings, which the local people cannot afford. Now, when the government does the provision and that they are the ones to pay these lawyers, I think it will make the accessibility of the services easier. It will go down to the grassroots, and I think it will help us. So I really hope to see that this takes effect.
For people like very poor women, men, people with disability, children, they do not have that money. Very often, their cases are not addressed because they cannot afford. And I really support it because when it comes in place, at least the deaf, the blind, the physically handicapped, the women will be able to bring up their case and they can be assisted and justice will be provided to them.
The proposed legal aid law, I think, is a great step and something which I think they have delayed because there are many people who have lost loved ones or their property, like us youth, or their jobs, but since they couldn't even gain any legal consultation, they didn't know what to do. So just like that, they lost their things.
This bill is long overdue. It makes a lot of common sense to the government of Uganda to have passed this a long time ago. That is why we are saying, let's harmonize, let's look at the defects, and let us, before Ugandans, give them what they deserve. Many have been denied justices. Injustices have been all over this country. This is an opportunity for government to give what is due to citizens that have been supporting this country called Uganda.
We are glad to note that the draft, as far as we are concerned, it's not yet gazetted, but we have a draft law. And we believe that soon or later, the member will go back to seek for leave to table the bill.
Instead of waiting cabinet to come out with the draft policy, we decided to jumpstart the process by starting with the bill, so that the bill can now actually attract the policy to come on board. So far, we introduced this bill, draft bill, the National Legal Aid Bill, in Parliament, in which it was debated on its merit, and all those who debated, 100%, were in support for this bill. The Speaker of Parliament gave us time with the Minister of Justice to harmonize our position and get back to Parliament and see how we can pass this law.
I like this intervention. I'm fully behind it. And once it comes on the floor, we will do our best to back it up so that it comes into law.
We need to support so that the government can take over and assist our people. So many members of Parliament, and even from my constituencies, they are very happy about it. They say, at last, my issues will be addressed. At last, the women will come up, their cases will be addressed. I think nobody will refuse this law. We are trying to advocate and persuade members of Parliament to support this law, this bill, so that it is passed into a law.
Bwe nagoba ku mulimu nafunamu okunyigirizibwa kwa maanyi. Kati time bwe yatuuka ng'omusango gusindikiddwa nga fayiro bagisindise mu kooti, nenzirayo ne mubuuza. Tibwenzirayo mubuuza n'angamba nti okufayiringa omusango yangamba weetaaga emitwalo nga 8. Then tulyoke tubaleeza okuwoza omusango. Sayina sente.
During this time, the period within which I've done my work, I have come across very many challenges that border on people failing to get adequate or justice. For instance, I have come across people who have had their land grabbed. People are very poor, people who cannot afford a lawyer.
The legal aid law will go a long way in reducing the rate of crime because we have people who are fond of committing crime like repeatedly because they know nothing is going to be done against them. So if they know that each Ugandan has a lawyer, has a representative in court, it will curb the rate of crime.
It's basically a nightmare in Uganda to access justice, and we really need address. So when we look at the new law that is coming in, legal aid, government providing lawyers to aid or to help out the people who are marginalized, we feel it's really a good law and it has really taken long.
Nina omuntu wange alina omusango naye twanyigirizibwa lwa mbeera yaki ey'essente nga twetaaga balaya naye nga ssente teziriiwo.
Tusaba muli pushing mangu liteekebwewo kubanga abantu bangi bali eno wansi banyigirizibwa. Ffe tubalonda mutukiikirire mubeeko kye mutuyamba tubakoowola muveeyo kweno ensonga lino etteeka liyisibwe mangu ddala kubanga abantu banyigirizibwa emisango giri mu kkooti mingi tewali agirondoola.
I request my MP in particular and other MPs in general to support the legal aid law when it comes for debate, because it is affecting all members of the communities. It cuts across all ages, and it will reduce on the rate of crime.
I would like to urge our honorable members of parliament in Honorable Kabaziguruka and Honorable Nabila to ably support this law. You've been part of the community where we are crying of rape, we are crying of domestic violence, we are crying of land grabbing, we are crying of so many things. The women, the men, the old people are all crying in this very community of Nakawa. So as legislators, I would like to ask you, please and please and please and please, let's stand and legislate properly and say that this law comes to pass in parliament once it's tabled.
Ndiwagira nnyo n'amaanyi olw'ensonga abantu bangi tufuna obuzibu nga tetulina buyambi, tetulina ssente zigula looya ne weesanga ng'onyigirizibwa.
It's very important for us to have a legal aid policy whereby the government would facilitate lawyers who are ready to represent this kind of people. If you look at annual reports published even by the judiciary and civil society involved in legal aid, you will see that the number of people who are accessing justice keeps on shrinking the other day.
Government should know that it's more beneficial to promote rule of law and peace and security using this legal framework than always recruiting more police officers and having more resources to pursue injustices in the community. Because the law will reduce on those kind of incidences and injustices. The law will be preventive.
This video is brought to you by LASPNet with support from Spotlight Initiative.